We're going to talk about Nick Kroll's new stand-up comedy special on Netflix called Little Big Boy. Came out at the end of September. Somehow I'm just now finding out about it. Way to go, Neal. We'll also dive into the greatest beer run ever, starring Zac Efron, Bill Murray, and the dude from Gladiator, Russell Crowe. We'll also briefly discuss the finer points of Morbius and Samaritan. Morbius, obviously, a phenomenal blockbuster movie that has changed the way superhero movies are being made, I think. And I think it's a very promising start to the Sinister Six universe. It stars Jared Leto and Matt Smith, I think it is, from House of the Dragon, and a young lady who is got big things ahead of her. And the dude from Mad Men. I think he was in something else. I can't remember. Samaritan, obviously, another superhero movie, so we're all souped out this episode. We're going to soup it up. We're going to soup it out. And that movie stars Sly Stallone, Sylvester Stallone, as one of two superheroes, or a superhero, or possibly arch nemesis. And he comes back after a 25-year absence to buddy up and pair up with this young kid played by Javon Wana something. Dude's nickname is Wana. I don't know if I want it, dude. All right, Nick Kroll, Little Big Boy. Nick Kroll's new stand-up comedy special on Netflix actually came out, debuted September 27th. Completely not sure how I missed that. I think I was just so hyper-focused on getting through Dark that I just didn't look at anything else. I was just like, go to continue watching Yes, Dark. So yeah, Nick Kroll, Little Big Boy on Netflix. After performing stand-up for 20 years, Nick Kroll makes his Netflix stand-up special debut, which is kind of hard to believe. The dude who has created Big Mouth for you, Netflix, and this must be a Kroll thing. It must not be a Netflix thing. I'm sure Netflix has harassed the piss out of him about putting out a stand-up special on their platform. He's probably been like, no. Anyway, filmed at the Warner Theater in Washington, D.C., and then theater is also spelled like weirdly. Yeah, no one needs to do R-E anymore, dude. Just E-R it. In a set that is hilarious with an emotional undercurrent, Nick shows a bit of his vulnerable side as he talks getting his heart broken for the first time at the ripe age of 33. Hilarious. Power of Mothers, also hilarious. And is a journey to fatherhood, which was emotional, as the description mentioned. In addition to the trick to farting without making any noise and much, much more. The bit, so the heartbroken for the first time at the ripe age of 33. He goes into a pretty extensive sequence about that, and it turns out to be this actress Kate Micucci. I actually did some research. Kate Masucci or Micucci. She's one half of the comedy duo Garfunkel and Oates. I think they had their own show on either Comedy Central or on IFC. Pretty sure it was IFC. And do yourself a favor. If you're not familiar with her, then Google her and have her picture up as you're listening to Nick Kroll go through the sequence. Cause it's like, this is the woman you're talking about. Interesting that he says that this is the first woman that he ever fell in love with and had his heart broken at the age of, the first time he's ever said, I love you to another woman. And the first time he says heart broken. So, he says he's a late bloomer. I'm a late bloomer. I get it, dude. But yeah, this girl, Kate, who said, I don't want to get married. I'm not into marriage. I'm not into the whole marriage thing, and dumps him. And, which Nick thinks is mostly because of his lack of masculinity. Like this actress, Kate, likes guys who ride motorcycles and do manly things like that. And then I Googled her and I was like, wait, this woman, she's into like motorcycle dudes? Huh? And she doesn't want to get married? And then, of course, after he says that after she dumped him, she ended up getting married like a year later, or I was engaged a year later. It's like, okay. Yeah, we don't know what we want. We don't know what's good for us until it slaps us right in the face. So you got to feel for him there, but it could relate to a lot of that. He also talks about being the youngest child in the family, which I cannot relate to because I am the oldest child, but it did make a lot of sense. Like the oldest child kind of catches the most heat from the parents because they're the first to go through everything. So they're like, there's like hyper vigilant watch over them and probably stricter rules. And then once you get to like the third kid, fourth kid, it's just like whatever. I see it happening with my sister and her family where it's like Kensley, can't say her name. The oldest, my niece, is like has a lot of responsibility and duties for a 9-year-old. It's like, I don't remember doing any of that. But, changing diapers and watching the kids when there are no adults around, like, just pretty heavy stuff. And so there are higher expectations for her. Whereas like my nephew, who's like a year, less than 2 years old, he, it's just like he's like climbing on top of the table and like doing like, breakdancing on the dining room table. And it's just like, all right, whatever. Look at him. Crazy rapscallion. So, the youngest kid, and Nick Kroll is the youngest kid in his family. And so he kind of, he can get away with a lot more. I mean, he was talking about how his oldest brother at the age of 16, like can drive stick and do all these things that are like hyper masculine, and then try to teach Nick how to drive stick. And Nick was just like, no, thanks. Bye. Like, yeah, that sounds like, oddly enough, that sounds like what I would do in that situation. He ended up dating Amy Poehler, and I was kind of hoping that would pan out. Of course, I was a big fan of Will Arnett and Amy Poehler, and was devastated when they freaking broke up, or got divorced, which I think happened in 2013, and that's when Kroll started dating Amy Poehler. So I'm wondering if they got together whilst married. I don't know. That ended almost 2 years later, and then he met Lily Kwong in 2018 on the dating app Raya, which is very exclusive and I guess invite only. It's mostly famous people, but also not famous people. So there's celebrities, but there's also like just rich people, just like super rich, influential 1% of population type people. And so that's how they met. They got married in November 2020. And then they had their son in January 2021. Wait a minute. I just did the math on that. Holy smokes. His brother-in-law is Roger Bennett, who is the co-host of Men in Blazers, one of the most popular soccer podcasts in the world. His dad's a billionaire. Cousin-in-law is a fashion designer. I mean, it's just like, okay. But he does this during the masculinity segment, where he's talking about masculinity and how just like it just wasn't really in the cards for him. He would do these impressions of Jason Statham, which I'm surprised more people don't do impressions of Jason Statham, because it is a pretty distinguished type voice. And he did it, and he freaking nails it, dude. I mean, it's such a good impression. And every time there's like moments where Nick needed to be masculine and wasn't, you have Jason Statham going, oh, right. I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm not going to be able to do it. I thought I could do it. I'm not going to be able to do it. I wish now I want to do it, but I can't do it. Nope, still can't do it. The farting without any noise, such a simple setup and payoff, simple joke structure, but it's like everyone can freaking relate to that. If you have not done that, do yourself a favor and just pull the trigger next time you're at a social event. It is funny though that he ties it in. The theme is that he's kind of like last grape on the vine type thing, where he's the last to find out, late bloomer. And so he just recently found out that what makes the noise for a fart is the cheeks vibrating. And so if you just pull one to the side, there's no noise. How can it be a fart if there was no noise? But how we are always so mean to our moms is the sequence that really stuck out to me. And he was like, call your moms after this. And I freaking did. I mean, that's how incredible that sequence was. Both funny and poignant. It's a simple premise. We're meanest to our mothers, almost always across the board. And he's like, why are we so mean to our moms? And so I definitely had to dial up Hannah Banana, Granny Hammy after that, just to be checking and be like, hey. And then you're in such a good mood when you call. You're like, I'm doing the right thing here. I'm going to show her how much I love her. And then she asks you the question that she's asked like 15 times before. And then it runs down the laundry list of things that I need to do. And you're like, all right, mom, it's been great. I love you. I'll call you later. Call you never. I got to go. Bye. And it's like, well, where you gotta go? It's Friday. You're unemployed. Where are you going? So yeah, that sequence probably the best. He did a few poop jokes, and I feel like he's got a lot of poop. I feel like he shits himself a lot, because I remember going to was the comedy festival in like 2015 at the Performing Arts Center in Homedale, PNC. Ever heard? And he was, I feel like he was telling that joke, that poop joke, almost the same poop joke that he told here, where it was, so he pooped himself in like a karate class where he went from black belt to brown belt. Hey-o, very funny. And then he pooped himself. He pooped himself trying to get home from another, like where he almost made it, and then pooped himself in the car. And then in Italy, I think with his now wife, he pooped himself, and she was cool with it. And that right there, my friends, is clutch. How do you don't see that on the 10 signs your partner and you were destined for holy matrimony and life forever together? Just like poop yourself in front of your partner and see how they react. They're like, get the hell out of here. You're like, this ain't gonna work, babe. So high recommend for me. There were some weird criticisms. I saw some user reviews and it was just like, what are you talking about? Someone mentioned like boomer humor. It's like, so like boomer is just now synonymous with like, I guess bad or cringy. Cool. Ironically, I guess not that ironically, Kroll will be in that movie, new movie, Don't Worry, Darling, that's causing a motherfucking ruckus, where it's I guess the reason that Olivia Wilde and Jason Sudeikis split up was because Olivia Wilde was hooking up with Harry Styles. Olivia Wilde's the director. Harry Styles is the actor. He's not singing his tits off. And that also apparently upset Florence Pugh, the co-star. And the amount of drama that is spilling out into public eye is kind of astonishing. I mean, I guess that happens with high profile people, but like it happened with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, obviously, but that's because it went to court. You're seeing things and hearing things that are just like, woof. At least my divorce wasn't like that, but she's getting her papers served on stage as she's accepting a major award. I think that video circulated, and now there's talk about how the nanny for them for a couple of years has come out and said like, hey, when Sudeikis found all these messages on Olivia Wilde's old Apple Watch, iWatch, that's how he knew she was cheating. And then she was going to take Harry Styles her salad with her special salad dressing. That's what made him like lay down in front of her car so she couldn't get out of the driveway. Some weird, wacky stuff. But so I can only imagine. I'm surprised. Maybe he shot the special. I don't know. I would have thought that he would have maybe a little anecdote or story about it, but I guess it's not making that much. Why would he? It would feel like kind of out of place, because that's not what the special was. The special was very personal. It was like, here's how my heart was broken. Here's how I met my wife. Here's how I had my baby. And talking about mom. So I can understand why he didn't broach the subject, but I would be curious to hear, like, if he could guarantee anonymity, like what the hell it was like behind the scenes on that freaking movie. Ay. Olivia and Jason, they had 2 kids, 8 and 6. Yikes. Olivia Wilde, though. I mean, ever since the first time I saw her on the OC, I was like, oh, you're trouble. I see you. You're trouble, girl. You're trouble. So Nick Kroll's special is at 88%, or 88% of critics gave it a favorable review on the tomato meter. There's only 3 reviews, though, so I'm kind of curious like how that comes out to... Oh, no, I'm sorry. There was no... There was no score on the tomato meters because there aren't enough reviews. There were 3 reviews. I think 2 of the 3 were favorable. 1 was not. And people criticizing him, like saying like his vulnerability was forced somehow. And that, or no, the vulnerability he showed was meant to be manipulative. But I mean, can we be honest for a second? Stand-up comedians, that's like their profession, is to manipulate people. Like that's what, like, you're manipulating emotions. That's your whole point on that stage, is to get people to feel emotions and connect to what you're talking about. So I took it to boot. I'm Canadian. Hello. I don't know. I thought it was a great job. And I just had a friend text me and said she applauded during the intro. I mean, like, it's great stuff. Very good stuff. So the audience score was 88%. So 88% of the audience gave it a favorable review with an average rating of 4 out of 5 stars, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Somehow, some way, the IMDb rating for Nick Kroll is 6.7 out of 10, which feels low. That's only like 600 users. Looks like the majority of people gave it a 7 or an 8. I think I gave it an 8. A 6, 7, or 8 is what it's kind of like, right in that area, that range. And what's cool about the IMDb ratings now is they have like this breakdown of males versus females and the ages and all that. So women 18 to 29 gave it a 7.7 average, which is interesting to me. I don't know. I don't know why, but I mean, I love Nick Kroll. I feel like he, and he mentions that he's not as hyper masculine. So I imagine that's why a lot of alphas don't tune in. I got better things to do: lift, cook, drive. But 6.5 from men in that same age range, but men 30 to 44, which is right, like pretty much his demo or older. They got a higher score. Also a high score from 45 plus year women. So I think I gave it like an 8. Highly recommend, dude. I loved it. So check it out. Or don't. Gives a shit. All right, next let's talk about the greatest beer run ever. This is on Apple TV. Rated R. It's a comedy drama, or a dramedy, or a comma, as I like to call it. Oh, Neal, you dog. 2 hours and 6 minutes long. Stars Zac Efron as John Chicky Donahue. Great nickname. Russell Crowe as Arthur Coates, who's a war correspondent for someone, I don't know, Time magazine or some bullshit. And then Bill Murray as the Colonel, who has his own bar. He's a bartender. And I got to be honest, this began streaming at September 30th on Apple TV. Got to be honest, the accents threw me off for the first couple scenes. I was like, oh, so they're in Boston. No clue or idea that they were supposed to be from Inwood, New York. I just got a very Boston vibe from everyone. But then again, like, I'm not a native New Yorker. I work in the city. I work in the city of rock and roll. So I don't know. The accents were tough to kind of get over for a little bit. But so what is this movie? It's a man's story of leaving New York in 1967 to bring beer to his childhood buddies and the army while they are fighting in Viet frickin' Nam. Yeah, to show support, Zac Efron's character Chicky decides to do something totally outrageous. Travel to the front line by himself to bring the soldiers a little piece of home, their favorite can of American beer. So, pause. What do you think the can of American beer is? Can of American beer, okay? None of that foreign crap. None of the imported crap. Domestic American. What do you think it is? Originally, if they're from Boston, I think you'd probably think, oh, this is a great time for Sam Adams to show their mugs. Or a Pawtucket Patriot. No. So it's not, they're not from Boston area, so it's not New England beers. So they're from Inwood, New York. What do Inwood New Yorkers drink that's American and what their favorite? You guess Budweiser. You're freaking wrong, dude. It's a Pabst Blue Ribbon, PBR. I guess maybe I should do a little more research on PBR, but it feels like the only PBR that I've known is like ironically ordering PBR in like hipster Brooklyn or something like that. Or, I ordered it in a bar in Philly and the guy said $2 just to drink it, $1 to shoot it. So I decided to shoot it. So that's PBR, Pabst Blue Ribbon. Who knew? I mean, this is the late 60s we're talking about. So maybe that was where Pabst Blue Ribbon was at as like the dominant American beer. However, what started as a well-meaning journey quickly turns into the adventure of a lifetime as Chicky confronts the reality of this into the adventure of a lifetime. Oh, quickly turns this adventure in a lifetime. Hey, read much? Confronts the reality of this controversial war, and his reunions with his childhood buddies thrust him into the complexities and responsibilities of adulthood. So it's kind of a coming-of-age, growing-up story, Step Brothers-ish in a way. Really hard to pinpoint his age, Because how old do you think Zac Efron is right now? I would say he's got to be in his early 30s, right? The way this was portrayed, it was like, okay, well, he's too old to join and enlist and serve, I guess. But yet all his closest buddies from the neighborhood are in the military. So I think that kind of threw me off too. It's like, I obviously wasn't alive for Viet frickin' Nam, but my mother was. And so I remember I asked her, and he was like, "Oh, your father, he couldn't get drafted, or he got out of the draft because he's got flat feet." And I was like, is that how drafts work? I feel like you could be like quadriplegic and they'd be like, get your ass out there. I don't know. So I was like, oh, okay. I guess that's why Dad didn't go to Vietnam. His friend ended up going, and as far as we can tell, doing okay. So it's a very delicate subject, very sensitive. And I mean, how many Vietnam movies that are comedies would you think get good reviews from critics? When's the last time you saw, I guess Good Morning Vietnam? I gotta watch that with Robin Williams. I should probably watch that. So maybe that's a good example. But I feel like, this is written and directed by Peter Farrelly, who did Green Book. There's Something About Mary and Dumb and Dumber, some of my favorite all-time movies. And I think you gotta applaud him a little bit for taking on such a challenge. I mean, this is a challenging story. Vietnam, a war that protests nonstop for however many years. Nobody won, or we didn't win, or whatever. And we lost a lot, 50, 60,000 lives lost or something like that. Could be making that up. So yeah, sensitive subject, tough topic to broach. And then you're going to make a comedy, not a full blown comedy, but you're still going to try and tell this story. I think a lot of people might say, well, why this story versus all the other stories that are out there? Because it's crazy and stupid, but it's honorable and impressive that this fucking dude can go over there and accomplish his mission, come out of it fairly unscathed, and changed in the process. His whole way of thinking about the war and supporting the troops has changed as well. So it's described as it's based on an incredible true story, and it's a heartfelt coming of age tale about friendship, loyalty, and sacrifice. It's based on a book of the same name, memoir written by the John Chick Donahue and J.T. Malloy. The difference, though, and they didn't really call this out in the movie, and I'm wondering if it would have been better to go this route instead of the route they went, which was this happens over a span of a couple days. In the book, Donahue's trip is 8 weeks, which is very much more impressive than a little less than a week. In my HO, dude. Dylan O'Brien and Viggo Mortensen were originally attached to the movie before Apple picked up the movie. And so once Apple got involved, they were like, nah, screw Apple, dude. I'm a PC kind of dude. I'm an Android kind of dude. Peter Farrelly had tried working with Russell Crowe once before they were in talks for The Three Stooges. And that obviously didn't happen. But The Three Stooges, my God. Can you name, so many movies where there's just this is going to be so good. I can't believe they're making a movie. And wait, I know who's going to be this guy. I know who's going to be that guy. I know who's going to play this part. It's going to be perfect. It's going to be perfect. I can't wait. And I never watched the Three Stooges movie. I can't tell you anyone who has. So it's and that's what it is. Okay, great. It's the fourth collaboration between Peter Farrelly and Bill Murray. Kingpin, great movie. Ernie, Big Ern. Osmosis Jones, never saw it. Dumb and Dumber 2, I saw it, and I don't remember Bill Murray being in that. So that was interesting. So in the movie, Chicky, slacking merchant seaman. Seaman. Who lives with his family in Inwood, which is that was interesting because his mother and father don't seem that old at all. I mean, you look at the actors who play them, and you're like, oh, you guys are in your late 30s, early 40s, maybe. And if Chicky's supposed to be what, 30-ish, or is it late 20s? What are we talking about here? What's the cutoff? I feel like the cutoff for getting drafted is not 24, is it? 25? Can't be. So he's still living at home with his parents, merchant seaman, which we used to play the merchant marines in college football. And I was like, I don't know what you guys are. What are you guys? Like, do you just ship seafood? What are you doing? Chicky's sister, Christine, is strongly opposed to the Vietnam War. In contrast to Chicky and their father, who are formerly served. And they learn that an old friend died in action. And while attending the funeral, he finds out that another friend has MIA, possibly KIA. And so Tommy Minogue. And so Tommy Minogue's mother is like, hey, I heard you're going over there. You going over to Vietnam? Because, Chicky gets drunk after the funeral or before the funeral. Before, I don't know. Gets drunk and says, everyone's like, we should do something. We got to show them support because as far as the troops can tell, if they're watching, which I don't think they were, if they're watching, they don't want to see all these protests and people being so angry about them being there. They want support. They want to be, we should let them know that we acknowledge them and that we see them and value them and hear them and know that it's not all bad back home, that we do support them. And so that's when Chicky comes up with the idea to do the beer run. And so Tommy's mother catches wind of that and is like, hey, I got something for you to give to Tommy. And it's like a rosary bead type thing. And she's like, well, he already has one, but it never hurts to have an extra one. It's like, okay. So he ends up making it over to Vietnam and gets caught up in everything, and hijinks ensue. Most of the troops are like, dude, you're an idiot. What are you doing out here, Chicky? You're going to get yourself killed. And then they have a beer and they're like, whoa, the guys, I've never seen the guys like that. Thank you so much for bringing that beer. It's like, oh my God. Okay. A little hot and cold action. But it seems like if you didn't say this is based on a true story and there's a memoir and it's a book and it's like pretty much as far as everyone or everything that I've come across, it's like pretty accurate. The part where it's like the military doesn't like dealing with CIA agents. And so CIA agents, the note on them was that they will be dressed as like they're on vacation and they're called tourists because they look like tourists. A Hawaiian shirt, camera around the neck or something like that, looking like they're on vacation. And that's how you know they're CIA, and that's how Chicky's dressed. And so a lot of the military think that he's CIA, and so a lot of his demands and requests are met because they don't want to have to deal with the CIA. Hard to believe that worked. I don't think that would work now. I think that definitely could work in 1967. So that was pretty cool. As soon as he befriends that one Vietnamese traffic guard type guy, it's like, I don't have a good feeling about this. It's like, good God, no. Like, of course, something so good and pure has to be taken from us. The part where he goes, he's like, I'm trying to get north to see so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, the only way you're getting north is if you're a member of the press or something like that. And so he goes, all right, well, I'm going to go to the hotel where they're staying and, chat them up, see what's going on. And of course he does. And maybe this is why I never became a journalist, but it feels like it was such as far as my experience has gone, a lot of the journalists are so, I get it. I mean, I guess I get it, but it's just like, do you have to be that way all the time? I guess I'm just speaking from my personal experience working at SNY and dealing with someone that came from the newspaper side of things and is like, well, this is how we did it at the newspaper. And I was like, newsflash, newspapers are dead. Ha ha. I just wanted to say that to her, but it's so bad. It's just like, oh, why do you have a stick? Why do you think you're so much more important than you are? Like, well, and why do you look down on everyone else? I don't know. I don't know why I have such limited experience dealing with journalists, but it's just like, that's the vibe I get, is like, they're just such unhappy people that also feel like they have to take it out on people that don't deserve it. Does that make sense? Like, yeah, I get it. Chicky's naive and he's kind of a doe in headlights. Like, I get it. What he's doing is brazen and blah, blah, blah. But it's like the total disrespect and disregard for someone, just like openly shitting on them. But yeah, so that's the journey that he goes on, is like he's trying to like make good with these press people to get on some kind of ship up north, and they were like, well, no, we're journalists and we can't get up there. And so he has to find another way, and ends up, I mean, the scenes with Habershaw at the one base where Habershaw is like, oh, so you're a tourist, huh? And he's like, yeah, sure. And he's like, hey, can you put in a good word for me at Langley? And he's like, yeah, I'll tell him, no problem. Like, those scenes were probably some of my favorites. Eventually the CIA ruse comes to an end because there's an actual CIA tourist guy who ends up like interrogating someone on the same helicopter chopper, and then throws the dude out the chopper, and he basically knows what's up. And so that's when Zac Efron Chicky has to go on the run. Oh, so the other thing that was heart-wrenching, and I've given a lot of thought about this, and I think people get upset about it, but it's kind of like, I'm not sure the value of things like that, other than, all right, so here's what I'm talking about. Arthur Coates, war correspondent, played by Russell Crowe, kind of not falls in love with, but recognizes and realizes the absurdity of Chicky's story, and is like, wants in on it. And that's where Chicky gets the real scoop on like everything that's going on, and seeing death. And, you know, when there's an North Korean army. No, it's not it. Jesus Christ, Neal, idiot. The insurgents, the rebellions, whatever. They decide to, for most of the movie, the conflict is believed to be happening out in the jungle and not near the city of Saigon. So it's a very weird feeling, because it's like you're in a country where there's war happening. It's just not happening right here. It's happening like over there in the woods. But yet people are just sitting, at the bar having a beer and like shooting the shit, as if like, I mean, and you don't really hear bombs going off or gunfire. It's just like, wow, I'm currently like kind of in the area of the war and like the same country, but you wouldn't know just by sitting at this bar until like the final climactic scene where all hell breaks loose and the insurgents, rebels, attack the city. The Tet Offensive. Sorry, my bad. The Viet Cong attacked Saigon in the Tet Offensive. Yeah. So, trying to come to terms with the military not really shooting us straight, and the journalists. Chicky feels that they're only telling one side of the story, the bad side, and not the good side. And I kind of see it from that perspective, because it's like they don't do a whole lot of, I mean, when he brings the one friend the beer, they're able to like hang out and play cards and shoot and talk smack and like joke around and goof off, and it's like you don't get to see that. But it's bad. It's I get it. It's bad. It's bad. He's bad. So, he witnesses this tank come by and blow a hole in the wall, and that's how the Viet Cong slip into the embassy and do damage. And afterwards, you see, I guess the general or someone higher up in the military official, saying that it was the Viet Cong that blew a hole in the wall. And Chicky's like, whoa. And that was The Loss of Innocence by Calvin Klein. Come to find out that this guy, Tommy Minogue, who's been missing, who Chicky is holding out hope for, even though everyone's telling him, no, the guy is gone, man. He's gone. And it's like, well, there's no evidence. There's no evidence. You got to hold out hope. There's no evidence, because what's the alternative? And then he ultimately finds out that that guy died. But you flash back to him, Chicky, convincing Tommy Minogue to enlist or enroll in the draft or whatever. And so he feels responsible for his death and goes to visit the mother to give her the rosary beads that he wasn't able to give to Tommy. And she says, don't worry about it. I forgive you. Gives him a hug. It's pretty cool. That was a touching moment. Now, let's look at these reviews, dude. Freaking reviews, dude. 41% of critics gave it a favorable review out of 111 reviews. Average rating of 5.1 out of 10 from the critics. And I think the top critics were even harsher on it. The consensus from critics, far from intoxicating. You're going to hear a lot of puns about beer. So saddle up. Far from intoxicating, the greatest beer run ever reduces its fun, fact-based story to a flat, flavorless brew. Ooh, burn. Brian Tallarico of RogerEbert.com. These freaking flies, dude. Trying to escape. A movie that's about as realistic about combat, trauma, and death as a high school play. Come on. Feels like you're exaggerating, Brian. It feels like a little bit of hyperbole. Like these critics, they and I mean, kudos to him. Like he got featured on my pod. So I guess it pays to be outrageous, but like, come on, dude. High school play? You did see that comedy was the genre, right? You did see that? I mean, the ability to try and do a comedy about Vietnam, I guess only Good Morning Vietnam is being able to do it. Well, I guess MASH. I guess the TV show MASH. So yeah, I guess there have been plenty of examples of good comedies that about a war, especially a war like Vietnam. Tim Grierson of Screen International says Zac Efron does his best to exude everyman charm, but the film feels manipulative and glib. I think glib was used a lot. And I'm going to be real with y'all. No freaking clue, dude. I mean, I kind of have a sense of what glib is. Take a little gander. Fluent and voluble, but insincere and shallow. Come on. I don't know about that, dude. Insincere and shallow. Oof. How is that insincere? Like a person trying to honor and pay homage to his friends, show support. I mean, it's the ultimate show of support. Like I'm going to put my life in jeopardy, even though he didn't really see it that way. Pretty much everyone who ran into him was like, what the hell are you doing here? And shallow, he wasn't doing it to like get press. I think that was made pretty clear. He wasn't doing it to like, I mean, can you imagine if the movie was made today? Like the person that's doing that is doing it to go viral 1,000%. So this is back before all that. Like he wasn't looking to get press or fame or fortune. He just he thought it was a good idea and followed through on it. So I don't know about all that shit. Reducing the complexity of the United States' ill-advised involvement in the Vietnam War to a would-be heartwarming tale of a callow regular dude who wises up. But that was the story, dude. Like they're just doing the story. That was the story. Like they're not trying to reduce. I don't think they were trying to reduce the complexity of it all. I mean, and there are plenty of, and I think the critics mentioned this too. It's like parallels to what's kind of happening today or what has happened over the history of the United States. I mean, the Vietnam War is probably just the one that sticks out the most because it was such a quagmire, right? This is the word, giggity. So I don't know if it was like reducing the complexity, but if you're looking at it through the lens of this particular person, isn't it the whole point? You know, he had a simple view of the war. Our friends are over there, they're fighting, they need our support. So why would it it gets more complex for him as he's progressing through the story? That's the whole freaking character arc, dude, is it going from simple to complex and him trying to process all that complexity. And the dude's not Harvard material, even though ironically, he does after this, I guess he does end up going to the Harvard School of Business and opens up became very successful in business. So, you know, but think about all the men of that cut from that cloth of that age. Like even look at his friends, you know, during that time and their thought processes and stuff like that. It's just, you know, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of just being accurate more than anything. Like they're not saying, hey, you know, the war is not the war. This is how simple the war is. The journalists aren't telling the truth and we're not supporting the troops. And there's too many protests. Like he had to grasp with that, you know, going from that initial protest scene where he confronts his sister and all those protesters to when he, you know, he bonds with his sister when he comes back and he's like, listen, I need to do less drinking, more thinking. And it's like, oh, did you want like a fucking monologue or soliloquy about, you know, going into all kinds of metaphors and analogies about his time over there? No, it's just like a regular blue collar guy had a great dumb idea, executed it, learn stuff in the process, come back. I mean, that's the story. What did you want this? What do you think? So this story should not be told is what you're saying. Cool. You know, just doesn't make any sense. Mark Feeney of the Boston Globe says a seriously miscast Efron does his best. He's good at looking perturbed and perturbation of many sorts is Chicky's lot throughout the movie. It's about all Efron's good at here. Oh, come on, dude. I don't think it was miscast. I think Zac Efron has now, ever since he did Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates, or no, even before that, when he did Neighbors, for me, that was Zac Efron's coming out party. As a guy that's like, he can pull off the comedy and he can pull off scenes with some weight, some gravitas. If you're watching the video, I'm trying to catch flies as I'm doing this video. What the fuck? God damn, these flies. Go into your trap. So I don't think he was miscast at all. So you think Dylan O'Brien would have been better? I'm not saying he wouldn't have been better. I just don't know that he would have been as good comedically. Zac Efron, I don't know. Maybe I'm completely off on this, but I loved Zac Efron on Neighbors. Neighbors 2, obviously. Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates. I thought he was great in that. I just think he's got comedic chops. And, he's in Baywatch, the movie. I don't know. I think he's grown on me a lot in the past 8 to 9 years. Holy crap. So I don't think he was miscast. Would Dylan O'Brien have been better in a different way? I loved him in, Love and Monsters? I forget what else he was in, but I think he probably would have, the comedy would not have been as good, but maybe the drama would have been better. Okay. We can vibe with that. Well, here, let me break it down for your critics looking for complexity. 91% of the audience on Rotten Tomatoes gave it a favorable review with an average rating of 4.4 out of 5. I agree with that. Although I don't know about 4.4 to 5. That's pretty intense. I think a lot has to deal with the fact that it is, in fact, based on a true story, and it's like close. A lot of people can say it's based on a true story, and then they fucking run wild with it, and it's like, this is not even anything like the true story. This is like, according to what I've seen and heard, very true to the book and to the memoirs and to the experiences. So I think that's why it gets that extra bump. I would say I don't know if I give it a 4.4, but it's close to a 4. Above a 3.5, close to a 4. 4.4 is high. Ooh. IMDb average rating is 6.8 out of 10. IMDb ratings are so freaking weird, dude. I don't know how much I trust it, but majority of people gave it that 6, 7, 8 range that we see. Most people gave it a 7. I think I gave it a 7. No more than I think about it. They have a breakdown of ratings by demographic, and females gave it a higher rating at 7 over males, gave it a 6.7. The high, get this. Well, there's only been 4 ratings. This is a weird one. For women under the age of 18, there were 4 reviews. They gave it an average rating of 4, the lowest out of every demographic. And if I have to guess why, it is because of the way that they portray Chicky's sister. There aren't a ton of female roles in this movie, so I will say that. I don't know if it passes the Bechdel test. There's like 1 female journalist, and then there's the mother, and then there's the other mothers, and then there's Christine, the sister. And it does feel like the sister is a bit one note and one dimensional, and you don't really get to see the depth or kind of like her to get fleshed out or more than just one thing until like really the end of the movie, where like Chicky has this kind of come to Jesus moment where like he summarizes everything that he's learned. So okay, I guess I understand that rating. A little bit harsh, but I'll roll with it. The highest rating of all demographics was males, 7.5. There was only 3 reviews, but it's pretty freaking high, dude. And then maybe that says something about why it didn't hit so much with the adult critics, is because like it does have a that high school drinking mentality almost, where it's like, oh, we're going on a beer run, and like beer runs are taboo because it's illegal, and like we gotta find so and so to get his beer. It's like it's a hunt, it's a quest, to trek to get beer. So maybe I think that's why it might have been so appealing to those 3 reviewers. Not to speak for them or anything. And then the next highest ratings was from females 45 and over, 7.1. And I would imagine that's because of just a lot of mothers possibly thinking about like, what if my son had to go to war, or my son has gone to war, and the feelings that I felt and stuff like that. So wide range of emotions. But to recommend for me, dog. Could it have been a little better? There was a section or two that might have dragged a little bit. Curious to see if there was any discussion about possibly drawing this out over 8 weeks as opposed to what seemed like days. And I guess that's what I was trying to get into with Arthur Coates and Russell Crowe, was like the scenes where the embassy is being attacked, the Tet Offensive from the Viet Cong. And then when he goes to this other base, and it's like a triage unit there, and there's just guys laid out all over the place, missing limbs and just severe damage done. And you see Russell Crowe, even as the Tet Offensive was happening, right? So as the attack is happening, he's got his camera out and he's shooting. He's taking pictures of dead people on the street. He's taking pictures of guys on a stretcher. And I thought it was interesting that, and maybe this is, I did not enlist in the military, did not, enroll or serve. So maybe someone in the military can help me out here. But like, you got like a press dude, some journalist in a vest with a camera is like taking pictures of all this, like your dead buddies and stuff. That, like, I'd imagine that would lead to a lot of fights and fist fights and conflict. Like, dude, can you have some respect? Jesus Christ. But I mean, that's where I'm conflicted, because it's like, you're a war correspondent. You're supposed to be like documenting essentially the war so that people need to see these atrocities and this, the graphic nature of war, because it gets lost in text, I think, sometimes, or a lot of the time. If people see it, then they can actually believe it, and maybe it'll sway some minds, change people's perspective. So it's still tough for me to swallow. It's just like, and you see that with, I think a lot of photojournalists, where it's like, they have to go into these areas where, it's brutal, but how are you going to convey that brutality if you don't take the picture? You have to actually do it for people to fully grasp and understand what's going on. So that was tough, but I got it. I understood it. And it was funny, like, not funny, but when Chicky's like, all right, let's go, let's get out of here. I got a ride to the flight, and it's going to be all right. And I was like, no, I'm not going. I can't go. This is my job. Like, I have to be here to to capture all this. Woof, dude. So yeah. All right. We'll quickly go over Morbius and Samaritan. Morbius, this came out April 1st, and boy, was that mentioned a lot in the critics' reviews. There's a PG-13 movie from Sony Pictures, distributed by Columbia Pictures, which, man, there's something about Columbia Pictures and Sony that always got me amped and juiced to see a movie. And then they've put out a couple of questionable releases, and you're like, come on, guys, you're ruining it. But so this is hour 44 minutes in association with Marvel. So that was another big talking point, was like, this is not part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's an alternate universe, but then something happens towards the end that makes you question it. And apparently there needed to be reshoots and recuts, because the guys that were producing this thought it was part of the MCU, and it's not. And blah, blah, blah. Anyway, biochemist Michael Morbius, played by Jared Leto, tries to cure himself of a rare blood disease, but he inadvertently infects himself with a form of vampirism instead. One of the most compelling and conflicted characters in Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters. Dude. First of all, you want to know how you're failing? Let's think of a better name than that. Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters. Come on. Comes to the big screen as Oscar winner Jared Leto transforms into the enigmatic anti-hero Michael Morbius. Dangerously ill with a rare blood disorder and determined to save others suffering the same fate, Dr. Morbius attempts a desperate gamble. While at first it seems to be a radical success, darkness inside him is unleashed. Will good override evil, or will Morbius succumb to his mysterious new urges? So, No is the answer. No and yes to those back-to-back questions. It's rated PG-13, which, I mean, that's got to be tough for... I mean, I know one of the most successful film franchises in the friggin' universe, Twilight, was PG-13. I think all of them were PG-13. But to do a vampire movie where they are supposed to suck blood and have a PG-13, there's got to be a bunch of restrictions and limitations there. So that's got to be tough to get around. But it's directed by Daniel Espinosa, who directed Life, which I thought was a pretty decent movie with Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds for like a hot minute. And what's interesting about that is, so it came out in 2017, and a lot of people made the connection that it was rumored to be a predecessor to Venom. And I can understand that, because if you've watched Life, the alien that does appear has like a very symbiote type appearance. So I freaking get that, man. And wouldn't it be a goddamn mind blower if someone came out and said, you know what? Yup, that was a predecessor. It's written by Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless, which, you know, hell of a name, dude. If that's your real name, whoa. If it's not, even more whoa, dude, to come up with Burke Sharpless. Anyway, it's a co-writing team behind Gods of Egypt, Lost in Space TV series, which I hear is pretty good, and the Power Rangers movie, which I don't think is good. And Gods of Egypt didn't get great reviews, and I think it's mostly because of the visual effects. Ironically, this movie, it feels like a lot of people were like, the visuals were fantastic. And then it's either that or this is the crappiest CGI I've ever seen. It's like, you're both watching the same movie? What are you... How many fingers am I holding up? So I don't have a ton of notes on this. I mean, it does. I do agree with a lot of the critics that like it did feel very like cookie cutter, generic. Like we're basically doing what we've seen a bunch of times before. I think what's tough about these Sinister Six movies with Venom and now Morbius is it's like you're trying to pave the way to form this Sinister Six team of villains, but you're also making them sympathetic and relatable, and so that you stick with them and you're almost rooting for them at a lot of points in the movie. But I didn't understand this Matt Smith's character, Lucian, which the character's name is Lucian. They start in this flashback where, Michael Morbius as a kid is in this, I guess, hospital type thing, children's care center with other similarly disadvantaged kids, or I don't even know what the proper phrase is anymore. And so the new kid comes in and is, setting up shop on the bed next to him. And he's like, he starts calling him Milo, and he's like, oh, I don't, well, that's not my name. My name is Lucian. And he's like, well, I'm going to call you Milo because everyone else, the guy before you was Milo, and the guy before that was Milo. So I'm just going to call you Milo. And then the Lucian character is like, I don't know that he ever says, okay. Like, he didn't say okay, or like, yeah, that actually fits me very well. I think I'll adopt that for the rest of my life. That was like never the case. So I'm like, throughout the movie, they're calling him Milo. And I'm like, wait, you're still calling this dude Milo? Like, he already said not his name, and you're still running with that freaking gag? Also don't understand Lucian / Milo's character arc. And apparently he's based on a comic book character named Hunger, aka Lokius Crown. So I don't know the backstory there, but the backstory here was Morbius is leaving. I forget why. I think he's going to a school or something, a school for the gifted. Professor X. Yeah. X-Men? No. So he's going to the school of the gifted. He writes a letter to Lucian, a goodbye letter. He's like, hold on to that for me. Great. Thank you. And Lucian, of course, the wind blows the letter out of his hand out the window down the street. So he goes down, he kind of, he gets down there to street level. And of course, all these kids, the bullies, have found it. He's like, give me back that letter. And they're like, no. And then they get in a fight and he gets beat up. How does that then transition to, you're coming to me for help, which you've done in the past, financial help, because I'm very well off and wealthy. I don't There's not a ton of mention why, other than he's works in finance investments. I kind of glossed over that part. I don't know how he acquired his wealth, but he's super wealthy. And so Morbius comes to him because he needs funding for this experiment so they can help cure or at least treat this rare blood disorder. Can't do it in American water. It does it in international waters. And so Morbius can't get into details, but he's like, blah, blah. So then it turns him to the vampire. Matt Smith's character, Milo, then finds out that he's this now, like, he's been cured of his ailments and is like this beefy, hunky dude. And he wants in, and Morbius is like, no. And so that causes him to turn heel. That's where it was like a little all over the map for me. Like, I get his arc in the sense that, okay, you've been bullied your entire life. You've been considered weak. You can't do what a lot of other people can do physically. And now you have the ability to not only be on that normal level, but then to be on a superhuman type level where like your heads and tails above a lot of these other people, and like they can't make fun of you anymore. And it's, that fork in the road. Like Morbius is trying to choose the good path, and this Matt Smith's character Milo is just like, I'm going straight evil on everyone's ass. Like, I've been fucked with for too goddamn long, and it's time for revenge. I get that. But then I didn't understand him having such animosity towards Morbius. They tried to play it as an angle of jealousy, like, oh, you were the favorite at school. But you didn't really get that sense, at least in the flashbacks. I didn't. So I think that's where the disconnect was for me. It's like, feels like you guys should just team up and like maybe, I don't know. So the lady, the actress who played Dr. Martine Bancroft, that was the other thing, is like everyone's name started with an M, which is like rule number one, the red flag or whatever. In every screenwriting advice tips guide I've ever seen, it's like, don't name every character name that you're supposed to have. It's supposed to begin with a different letter because it distinguishes them and keeps them separate. This one's like Michael Morbius and Matthew Milo and Martine Mancroft. It's like, okay, a little overboard with the M's. But Dr. Martine Bancroft, so not allowed to say it. Attractive, there, I said it. A scientist and colleague, she was the quote-unquote smart one in the room, and took inspiration from politician and activist AOC. What? I do not see that at all. I have no idea what she's talking about. Jared Harris from Mad Men, and shit, he was another great series. I forgot what it was. Dr. Emil Nicholas, a mentor and father figure who runs a facility that looks after people with incurable illnesses. Al Madrigal as FBI agent Al Rodriguez, who's hunting down Morbius with his partner, Simon Stroud, played by Tyrese Gibson. Fun fact, I once got in a heated argument with Al Madrigal on the phone. He probably doesn't remember, but I was working at Daily Motion, and we had an exclusive partnership with Al's comedy group network called All Things Comedy that he, I think, co-founded with Bill Burr. And I remember I was very excited about this because it was like they had a podcast and networks. They were all audio only. This is before the times where really when any podcasts were filming their podcast. So there's no video of podcasts for the most part. And so I proposed like, hey, if we give you the funding, how about you record video of these podcasts, and the video of the podcast can live exclusively on Daily Motion. And I was not only able to get them to sign on, but I was able to get Stand Up NY, which is All Things Comedy is kind of more West Coast based, LA based. Stand Up NY is, you guessed it, NYC based. I was able to sign them both to those kind of contracts. And I remember to a T, almost every goddamn show was like, yeah, we're recording video of this podcast, part of a new deal with what's the platform? It's not on YouTube, okay? So don't ask us. Don't ask us to put it on YouTube because it's not on YouTube. We're not. What's the name of the platform that we're on? I don't know, but it's a piece of shit. It's just like, oh my God, everyone's gonna talk smack. Everyone's gonna trash talk us. We're paying you, and like, it's not quite the level of like Howard Stern, in Private Parts, where Howard Stern is just like duking all over NBC Radio, like that ongoing battle that he had with the creatives and executives. I'm hoping it wasn't that same kind of conflict, at least from my perspective. It was just like, hey, you can do or say whatever you want, just don't shit on us constantly. Like, how about you try and promote us? We'd love to have you call out once per show that you're on Dailymotion, and go to dailymotion.com/allthingscomedy, and you can see every video of it. Like, that's all we're asking. Instead, it was just like, no one's going to watch it because no one knows what the hell the platform is. Like, I know. The whole reason we signed you to this was so people learn about us. Trying to build awareness. Anyway, Al Madrigal. Feels like he also plays, every character he plays on everything is just Al. Anyway, Tyrese Gibson is Simon Stroud. I did not pick up on this, and maybe my attention span is just not as great as it used to be. Not that it's saying much, but Stroud had a high-tech weapons-grade arm. Oh, all scenes featuring this arm were cut. Okay, that could have been useful. Gibson signed a 3-picture deal when he joined the film. Okay, all right. Seems like you probably should have featured the arm if he's going to come into play multiple other movies. Mercenary Mr. Fox. I don't remember the Mr. Fox scene at all. And then, spoiler alert, towards the end, Michael Keaton makes a cameo as Adrian Toomes, aka Vulture, which was his character in Spider-Man Homecoming. And pretty excited about that. I think that might be the best part of the whole entire movie, and that came during the credits. And this is where we learn that he just materializes and shows up in this empty cell, and he's released because in this universe, the Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters, that person has never done anything wrong or has never been caught for anything that he's done wrong. And so they release him. And then in another, I think, post-credit scene, you see him show up and kind of recruit or propose to Morbius that they should team up. Like, hey, what do you think? What do you think, dude? You want to bro out? And that also ruffled a lot of feathers with some fans because apparently and maybe I might have missed this in Spider-Man No Way Home. Phillies just won 2-0. God damn it. But apparently there was some comment made in Spider-Man No Way Home, and I think I remember this, where he's like, people from other universes can come to this universe, but we can't send anyone from this universe to other universes. And so that's why people were like, so how did Vulture show up in this other universe? I thought it's only one way. How does it work like that? I thought you need like a special whatever. Apparently you're wrong, dude. Okay. Open your mind. Okay. Yeah. The best part about this whole movie are the memes. Due to its lackluster box office performance and dour critical reception, Morbius inspired various internet memes following its release. And I don't know why I don't remember this at all. I guess I'm not following the right people on social media, but following its release, the hashtag Morbius sweep, which jokingly claimed Morbius was the most financially and critically successful film of all time, began trending. Claims included the film becoming the first to sell over 1 trillion tickets, the first to make over $1 billion, receiving an impossible 203% or higher approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and an edited Wikipedia page that said Morbius had earned $352.9 trillion at the box office, one of the highest grossing films of all time. This one is the one that got me. One such post made the claim that Martin Scorsese, who had previously declared that superhero films were not cinema, had changed his mind after seeing the film. His fake quote was shared on Instagram by Morbius actor Tyrese Gibson under the belief it was genuine and was later deleted. Ay, dude. There was a resurgence in memes following its release on video on demand, with many involving the fake catchphrase, "It's Morbin time," which is a play on Power Rangers, "It's Morphin' time." Users on the film's official Discord server call themselves Morbheads, and users engaged in Morbin on various Discord servers by distributing pirated copies. There's a lot of piracy. On Tumblr, the entire film was compressed into a very tiny GIF and widely spread. Jared Leto, in response to the memes, tweeted, "What time is it?" In a 19-second video where he was caught reading a script titled Morbius 2, It's Morbin Time, written by himself under the pseudonym Bartholomew Cubbins. Following the financial failure of the re-release. Oh, so there was a re-release. So that was real. I don't think that was real. I saw another comment that was like, all this fake virality and new, like, fake memes and whatnot were, I mean, exactly what happened to Tyrese. I guess that's what happened with the executives. And they were like, look at this. The people love it. And then re-released it. I don't remember that happening. I don't think that's real. It says, following the financial failure of the re-release, a petition was started on change.org to put the film back in theaters for a third time with the claim that we were busy that weekend. Oh, dear God. Jared Leto committed to capturing Michael Morbius's limping state and used crutches even off camera. This proved to be troublesome from the crew at times when the actor reportedly took 45-minute treks to the bathroom. Pushing him in a wheelchair was a loophole solution around these delays. No idea if that's real. Probably not. So that's the best. I guess that's the best part of growing up is Folgers in your cup. 15% of critics gave it a favorable review out of 272 reviews, an average rating of 3.8 out of 10. Holy moly. Liz Shannon Miller of Consequence wrote, Morbius, at best, will be remembered as the latest effort on Sony's part to make its nascent Sinister Six franchise happen. And like Fetch, it's hard to see that happening. God damn you, Liz. You fucking nailed it. Nell Minow of Movie Mom, which is a real thing. More like Borbius, am I right? Hell yeah, dude. Crushed it. The action scenes are poorly staged and the special effects are awful. Plus, it spends too much time on the origin story somehow without ever making us connect to the title character. You got like 2 hours to play with. Yeah, I feel like the time they did spend on the origin story was pretty legit. Although it like I said, it didn't make much sense for Milo's character because it's like, okay, I can see why you're pissed at humans, but then you're going to get pissed at Morbius, who is like your dude, your bro. And here's the fun part. And this is probably what's going on with, and I imagine Rotten Tomatoes has to deal with this a lot where it's like, all right, people are effing with us, right? 71% of the audience on Rotten Tomatoes gave it a favorable review with an average rating of 3.8 out of 5. Ooh, 5,000 plus verified ratings. I mean, that's what is it called? Your rating bombs? Or you just like bombard a site like this with like fake reviews and ratings and whatnot. Critics' consensus: cursed with uninspired effects, rote performances, and a borderline nonsensical story, this dreary mess is a vain attempt to make Morbius happen. I'm telling you, I don't think they did wrong with the casting. The people that they got were awesome. I like Jared Leto. I like Matt Smith. And I like the Harris dude from Mad Men. I think those are all good choices. It's just some of the other choices didn't. The uninspired effects at this point in movie making history, I don't understand how you mess up visual effects in CGI. I don't know how that happens. And I understand budget issues, but if anything is going to suffer from the budget, it can't be the CGI, dude. It just can't. It takes you so far out of the freaking movie. And you're paying attention more to the like shoddy effects than you are the freaking movie, dude. I would have liked a little explainer on like the vapor, smoky type things that are coming out of the vampires. I just want a little bit of explanation on that. Like, why is that happening? Nonsensical story. It wasn't that nonsensical, but it was like, it did feel like that was the story that they ran with. It felt like, I don't know if it needed something more or what, but the direction it took, I was just not a big fan of. Rote performances. I mean, you can't get better performances. A lot of it has to depend on the writing, the direction. The audience says that Morbius isn't telling the most original story, but cool visuals and fast action keep things entertaining. Again, cool visuals. We're all watching the same movie, right? Morbius truly. We'll end on this. We'll end this Morbius review with this. This is a review from a verified Rotten Tomato critic, audience member. Sorry, I don't know how to get verified as audience on Rotten Tomatoes. I think I am, so that should tell you a whole lot. Morbius truly has to be one of the films released in 2022 so far. Jared Leto did a job playing Morbius, and the action was in the film. The film is storytelling, and the CGI was animated. The side characters were along with Morbius, and the villain was a bad guy. The jokes were sentences. This film really is one of the films of all time, if not the last decade. It took me probably halfway through that to realize, wait, what? I had to like reread the first sentence or two, and I was like, I got it. Okay. All right. So that's Morbius. I don't know if I'm going to spend a ton of time on Samaritan, for the love of God. I mean, this is going to sound crazy, but I think Samaritan was worse than Morbius. And both of these films, I mean, no one went on a meme brigade, meme-orama, meme extravaganza like they did with Morbius, but it's like, if you think Morbius was kind of, although I think Morbius could have used a nice twist. That would have been cool. Samaritan does have a twist, which we'll get to. But it's PG-13, action fantasy, hour 39 minutes. 13-year-old Sam Cleary, played by Javon, quote-unquote, Walton, ridiculous nickname, suspects that his mysterious and reclusive neighbor, Mr. Joe Smith, aka played by Sylvester Stallone, is actually a legend hiding in plain sight. 20 years ago, Granite City's superpowered vigilante Samaritan was reported dead after a fiery warehouse battle with his rival nemesis. Most believe Samaritan perished in the fire, but some in the city, like Sam, have hope that he is still alive. With crime on the rise and the city on the brink of chaos, Sam makes it his mission to coax his neighbor out of hiding to save the city from ruin. This released on August 26th, and I thought, let's give it a shot, because I am more willing. I've learned my lesson with Rotten Tomatoes, right? If I see a high critic score and a low audience score, forget about it. No thanks. I'm not even going to entertain that anymore. Not even going to think about it. But now, low critic scores and high audience scores, I'm like in love with it. That's why I checked out Morbius, even though now in retrospect, I understand that was a joke. And then it's why I checked out Samaritan, because I was like, audiences appreciate this for what it is. Critics want like to reinvent the wheel. I don't know that you have many other guys in this movie that you'd really recognize. There's a dude who plays Cyrus, who he's in that HBO Max show set in the future. They're androids, werewolves, raising wolves. I think that's what it's called. That might be in season 2. He's pretty baller in that. He's pretty awesome in that. I think he's in that, but maybe I'm wrong. I am wrong about that. He was in Game of Thrones. He's a dude that comes along in like the last season or 2 and decides like, hey, I'm gonna lay it on thick with this Danny character, but then I'm also gonna lay it on thick with this one, and just trying to like, make moves. Gotta appreciate that. So the film is inspired by Unbreakable, one of my favorite films, and Finding Forrester. Never saw it. They both came out in 2000 though. In Cyrus's warehouse, the arcade game RoboCop can be seen a parallel movie where the city is in chaos and anarchy, looking for a beacon of hope. Okay, I dig that. I get that. It just didn't really have. If it was striving to be RoboCop, I'm not gonna say swing and a miss. I'll say foul tip. Like, same kind of vibe, but didn't have the level of humor and satire, I think you would say, that RoboCop had. Kind of like commentary, if you will, social commentary. 39% of critics gave it a favorable review on the tomato meter, Rotten Tomatoes, 5 out of 10 average rating. So a higher rating than they gave for Morbius. And I think even a higher rating than they gave, just about the same rating that they gave The Greatest Beer Run Ever, which is just whack-a-doodle, dude. Amy Nicholson of the New York Times said, do crumbling communities need a fighter or a figurehead? Do good and evil coexist inside us all? In lieu of embodying these questions, Stallone's character, an apathetic self-proclaimed troglodyte, glumly flattens a toaster with his bare hands. So yeah, I guess you put that in the negative category. 71% of the audience gave it a favorable review out of 1,000 plus ratings, with an average rating of 3.8 out of 5, which is just astonishing. And my guess is that has to do 100% with Sylvester Stallone. I get it. I mean, if he's not in this movie, I'm probably not watching this movie. Like, there's another movie with what's his name, Joe Manganiello, where he's also kind of like people think he's crazy. He keeps claiming that he came from another dimension. He's a superhero, but he lost his powers as he came to this planet or this universe. And I can't bring myself to watch it. And I think that's what's tough for a fair amount of people is like, if you're going to do like an original superhero type thing and it's not Marvel and it's not DC, it's tricky to rock around. It's tricky. It's tricky. So you have to go on a limb, and I went on a limb because of Sly Stallone. And the twist was decent. I like the twist. I just, I think I wanted more out of his interaction with the kid, for sure. And then I wanted more out of the Cyrus character, the guy who from Game of Thrones, because he looked like a freaking badass. Cool hairdo, cool clothes. Claims that he was a big fan of Nemesis and that he wants to carry out Nemesis. So Samaritan's the good guy, Nemesis is the bad guy. They're twin brothers. I don't know if you picked up on that. And so the belief is that both of them died in that warehouse fire thing that happened. And so this guy Cyrus, who grew up idolizing Nemesis, the bad dude, is like, I'm going to carry out his mission. And then you come to find out that Sly Stallone, you're led to believe that Sly Stallone is Samaritan because he comes off as like this, he's kind of a curmudgeon, a grump, but he seems to be like doing good things, not evil things. So you're like, oh, you just assume like that. Oh, Sly Stallone is Samaritan. And plot twist. He's Nemesis. So yeah, cool plot twist. But then that's where it lost me after that, because like this Cyrus dude, they could have done so much with this Cyrus guy. Such a cool dude. And I know the guy was trying to put his own little stamp on it, his own little brand, his own seal, his own identity, his own twists on it. But it just felt like they could have done so much more with that character. And, he definitely gets the crowd riled up, a la Joker in The Joker with Joaquin Phoenix. So there was kind of that vibe going on. But it was just, it felt like it was it was dialed back in scale and whatnot. So good potential, decent story. And, there was the whole interaction with the dude from, what's his name? He was in Freaks and Geeks, I think, but he's in Knocked Up, and he was in the HBO Silicon Valley. Martin, Silicon Valley, beard, long black hair, glasses. Love that guy and pretty much everything he does. And so he was in this movie, and he wrote a book about Samaritan or something to that effect. And he's been trying to like prove that Samaritan still exists, and he has like the whole Pepe Sylvia red yarn on the board type thing. And so then you have the kid talking to him. That was a good scene, and I was kind of hoping there would be more scenes like that, because that was a good scene where it's like they're kind of exchanging theories and ideas and whatnot. I thought that really played well. But then you have these other scenes where it's like, here are thugs, and here's like a gang, and here it's like typical bullshit. It's like, all right. So I don't think you need to watch it. I don't think that's a recommend for me. As crazy as that sounds, I think there might be some interest in seeing more of that universe, because we're so used to seeing just the Marvel Cinematic Universe and just whatever the hell DC is trying to crank out. It's always cool to see something a little bit different. And I think that's, it was different, but the same, I think it would have been a lot cooler to see more of, if they had intercut like present storyline with past storyline. They did it somewhat, like they had flashbacks here and there, but it's like, I would like to see more of that past. Like, what did we miss back when it was actually happening? What did we miss in the 25 years in between? Like kind of splicing that, intercutting between the present timeline to the events leading up to that timeline. They did a very cursory, brief intro with a voiceover narrator, which might have been the kid, that introduced you to that, what happened that night, or briefly what happened, to the kids growing up, and kind of give you like their motivation moving forward and things like that. But still feel like they could have done a little bit more with that backstory and stuff like that. But what are you gonna do? I don't know. It wasn't. I also think I don't know. I kind of feel like people are excited about Sylvester Stallone being in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because he was in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I don't know. You watch this movie and I understand that was what the perception, that was the intended goal, was like, hey, you're familiar with Sylvester Stallone, the action star at his peak, glistening sweat, looking straight studdish like a snack. But here he is, and he's been through some shit, and he's got the battle wounds and the scars to show it. And so that's what they wanted you to come away from it as, like, okay, this is a guy who, has seen better days. I get it. But at the same time, it just, not quite. It kind of, I know that was the intention, but I just didn't connect. So Samaritan, take it or leave it. Honestly, I don't think you need to watch it. Maybe you can watch it and come up with better ways to improve it than me. Like, how would I fix this? How should it have ended? Personally, I think they should have got a lot deeper with Cyrus, his motivations, his upbringing. Like, why is he turning that way? Maybe some pivotal moments leading up to, between Nemesis and Samaritan, leading up to that final conflict. Just little things here or there that could have really turned it up a notch. But instead, it was just like, all right, we all kind of see where this is going. I mean, the twist, I guess, is unexpected. When they said twin brothers, I was like, right, very cool. I was almost hoping that there would be a second Sylvester Stallone. I was like, sly on sly violence. Oh my God. All right. That's enough of Samaritan.